Hello, it's Logan here again, joined by Apps once more. We are back with another review, and this time we're doing the well-known AAA title, Do Not Feed the Monkeys. Apps, how you doing?
Good, thanks, you.
Yeah, not bad. May have made that up around AAA and well-known, because I don't think it is either of those, but here we are anyway. I mean... An interesting title. I mean, just to give the guys another insight, a little bit of Dimp Digital behind the scenes. We've done a couple of reviews tonight, and I forgot the name of this one.
Yep.
And had to get Mr. Apps to remind me what the game was called. So as you can tell, I am fully clued up on it.
Yeah.
But I am not here to be the expert. Mr. Apps is. I mean, that's what we're labelling you, expert.
Bit of a stretch, but I'll take it.
Well, I think you should take it. So, Do Not Feed the Monkeys then. For some reason, I get the feeling there's a bit of a backstory to this game, because it doesn't really fit in with what you've been playing of late. And it hasn't even got an open critic score. So what are we doing?
Well... So Do Not Feed the Monkeys, the only reason it came on my radar is because I got a discount voucher in my Steam inventory that said, because you own Papers, Please, which I'd liked, that's like the checkpoint simulator almost, where you're housing, you're controlling the checkpoint where people want to get from one country to another. You have to check their passports and all their documents and let them through or deny them depending if they've got the right things. It's more interesting than that, but it's a good game.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So I assumed, for some reason, I just assumed that, this must be their next game. I completely forgotten that the chap who had done Papers, Please, went on to do Return of the Obra Dinn, which is on my Steam wish list, and I haven't got round to buying it yet. I was kind of hoping it would come to consoles by now, but it hasn't just yet. Anyway, this didn't all go through my head when I first saw the coupon, and it said, 40% off Do Not Feed the Monkeys because you own Papers, Please. And I thought, okay, I'll go and get that then. I think I paid £4.20 for it. So that sort of outlay, I weren't going to query it, was I? It wasn't until I did some research and I was like, this is not this is not what I thought it was.
Yeah. And
Chappers also had purchased it, I think, and mentioned it in the group as well. That's what kind of led me onto it a little bit. I was like, okay, it's that game that Chappers has mentioned. It's related to Papers, Please. We're done. We know what's going on. But that was not the case at all. It's a completely different developer. I mean, I'll have a go at pronouncing them, but this English is more your strong suite. But was it Fictorama Studios?
Yeah.
Now, I've done a little bit of research on it. Apparently, it's founded by three Spanish brothers. And that's all I know about it. I don't know how many people they've got there, but I was basically sort of tricked into it, or unknowingly bought the game thinking it was the next Papers, Please game. So... And to be honest, when I saw the trailer, it intrigued me. Now, you didn't have any clue about this game before I said we're going to do a review on it tonight. And then I sent you the trailer beforehand so you could get a little bit of an eye for it. What did you make of what you saw in that 1 minute and 6 seconds or whatever it is?
I mean, it's an interesting kind of concept. And I can understand to a certain degree the link to Papers, Please. It's a bit tenuous, but it's an intriguing concept because it's one of these games that's it's like something that reminds me of if you got something flashed on your screen, it said every time you see the word blue, click the button.
Yeah,
and it comes up, goes blue, 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 and then it will chuck in a red, and you'll still want to press the button. I don't know what that's called exactly, but basically you get into a rhythm, and it seems like one of these games that's like you're fighting your own brain, which intrigued me more because I know that you and your brain have a constant battle ongoing. Old Ronnie up there controlling things.
He's not an ideal pilot.
So I thought that's quite interesting. It must have been an interesting one for you and your brain to play.
Yeah, it was. I don't even know how to describe it for people. It really is an oddity. I mean, at its core, it's going to sound weird. At its core, it's a voyeur simulator where you watch strangers, not real people. This is all game graphics and whatnot. Strangers through surveillance cameras, and there's a number of different things that can happen once you start watching them. But I think in order to give it some sort of context, I need to take a step back and go through exactly what kind of happens. I mean, it's essentially a 2D, almost like a screen manager game. So there are two screens in which you can flip between in the game. There's one screen that has your desk, which has your PC and has a newspaper and a phone nearby, and so you can interact with these items, and the PC is the main one you're interacting with. So you kick the game off, and it turns out you've been chosen by I think they're called the Primate Observation Club, and these are the guys that set up and observe other people through the surveillance cameras and compromise webcams. So they're the guys that have set up this sort of, I don't know if it's dark web or whatever it is, but they set up a little group where they go out and they observe people's private lives, basically. And you've been selected to join this club, so I'm guessing at some point as the player you was like, oh yeah, I want to be that. So you're the newest member of said club, and you live in this flat or this apartment that's really run down. It's a bit of a shithole. You have to pay rent every 3 days, and you take jobs to make money. So you don't physically go and do the job. You turn around to your second screen, which is the screen of your apartment, which has your bed, has your front door, has your fridge, and on the door will be job opportunities that you can go to and earn some money. Now, what links into the game and the jobs and the screens and the I guess the spying, if that's what it's called, is that there's a time presence in the game. So the clock's constantly ticking. So when you start off at 9 o'clock on day one, within a couple of minutes it'll be 9:10, then 9:20. So time goes on, and the people on the screens that you're looking at, their lives change and go on depending on time of day, routine and whatnot. But also you've got to manage your eating and your sleeping so that you get enough rest. So you've got to spend time away from the computer, from spying on people, to rest. Otherwise your character will die or collapse or whatever. And the same with your eating. You've got to make sure you buy food, either by going out to the shop, which will cost you an hour of time. So time, again, is really the currency. Or you can order a takeaway. But if you order a takeaway and eat it, your health might go down, like your overall health. So you've got to keep yourself healthy. So you've joined this club or whatever you want to call it, and you get the opportunity to watch. At the start, I think you get 4 screens to start with. You get 4 screens, and there'll be characters in each of those screens doing things and talking or interacting on the phone or whatever. And the idea is that you can just sit there and observe it if you want to. So you can just sit there and see what happens in their little story. If you leave their story to run, it will eventually sort of loop round and nothing will really happen. But the idea of the game is to investigate what's going on in that particular person's life. So I'm just going to spoil just one of the stories to give you an idea of what they could be. So on one screen, there's a guy who is in an attic, and first of all you can click on different items around the attic and it will jot these notes down, I don't know, as like in your notebook. So you'll notice there's photos on this sort of like flip chart. You'll notice that there's a telescope in there. You'll notice that there's rats up there. There's storage boxes. So from those sort of words, you can decipher that it's an attic that he's in. A guy comes in, and he's looking through the telescope, and he's taking pictures through the telescope and out the window. And he's saying things like, "That's it. Make sure you haven't got your clothes on. Yeah, that's a good shot." All this stuff. So you kind of figure out that he's obviously spying on someone. He's actually voyeuring on someone, probably taking nude shots or whatnot. As he is describing or saying things to himself, you can click the dialogue buttons, or dialogue words, sorry, and jot down certain phrases. And when you jot down these phrases, they go into your notebook and you can kind of formulate a theory of what's going on. So when you start hearing that it's him taking shots of someone out of a window who doesn't know, 3 options might turn up, and it might be like, he's taking nude shots, he's taking nature shots, he's taking something else shots. So you choose which one of those you think best fits. And you can then use these words in a search engine. So you just click on the word, click on the search engine, and then it will search the web, and it might bring up a web page with similar type bits and pieces. So you type in nude shots, it will bring up a website it talks about how there's a big black market for people that are taking pictures of celebrities that are naked and then selling them for huge profit, like blackmailing them. Anyway, off the back of all this, you can gather more information by watching what he's doing and how he's reacting, and you figure out who the person is, and you then get a phone number for the person who's getting the pictures taken of them just through your investigation work, and then also the person who's actually taking the pictures. And at that point, you can intervene. You can call either one of them up, and you can say to the celebrity, "Oh, so and so's in an attic opposite your apartment taking pictures. Thought I should let you know." And in which case, that person will eventually be arrested, and you will get a reward from the celebrity agent for that. Or you could perhaps tip off the voyeur, if you will, and give them a bit of a head start or an edge to make sure they're not caught. And that's just one screen out of probably about 20 different stories that potentially could pop up during your gameplay. And it's a balance between viewing each of the screens so that you get enough information to progress the story, but also making sure you take time away from the screen to go and earn some money. So to select a job that takes 4 hours and pays $80, so you've got enough money to pay your rent, so you've got enough money to pay for food, and that critically, every 5 days you've got to buy 5 more screens for the club. So you then go from 5 screens to 10 screens, and hopefully by that point you've closed off 3 or 4 of them, so you haven't got to manage 10 screens at a time. But that's the general loop. Spy on people, figure out what's going on, close the story in any way you see fit, or the game that allows you. Make sure you've got enough money to pay the rent every 3 days. Make sure you've got enough money to buy food, and then also make sure you've got enough money to buy new cages and whatnot. The babbler.
I think that's...
Does that even make sense?
Yeah, so for me, never having played it, and all I've got in front of me at the moment is a picture of the screen, or a screen that you would have up.
Yeah.
So that fills in basically all the gaps that are in my mind. I think it's a really interesting concept, and I bet you get really... So is it an option just to sit there and watch?
Yep.
Every single one of those. You can just watch them and you don't have to do anything.
No. But what I noticed when I did that was that eventually they would loop round. So the conversations that they would have would start recycling again. So I think there's only a finite amount of scenarios each story has. And it wants you to interact, I think. It wants you to, or at least find out what you think's going on. You don't have to actually make the call and start talking to people or sending people to website or whatever. You don't have to interfere, but I think it wants you to at least establish what's going on, and then if you want to make a choice and interfere, you can do, but you don't have to. Because you can also earn money from the club, so they'll send you an email every few days saying, "Oh, on screen," or they call them cages. They call the people monkeys, i.e., do not feed the monkeys, so don't interact with them. That's the point of the game. And they call each of the screens cages. So they'll say, in cage 6, can you tell me who the person who lives in that apartment is? And if you've been watching it and if you've taken the notes, and you don't have to take physical notes, you literally just click on, it will highlight yellow words that you can click on, and it will make notes in your book for you. If you do that and then do some searching on the internet, you can find out who the person is and then go back with an answer, and you'll get $100 for that. So you can just do that if you want to, try and figure out what's going on that way. But I think the game wants you to interfere, because there's not enough there's not enough content there for them to stop themselves from repeating themselves. So I think at some point it expects you to think, right, I know what's going on here, I'm now going to intervene and do something.
So despite the game saying do not interfere, the purpose is really to make a decision as to how you're going to interfere into storylines.
Yeah, I think there is this based on what you do and what decisions you make, there are different endings, and I think there is an ending for you not interfering with stuff, so you just go about your daily life and just pay the rent, you know, buy food and just survive. There is a ending for that, but you know, the whole fun of the game is to interact and see what happens when you start fiddling and you know, interfering really, and it can go many different ways depending on how you approach it, and not always the way you'd expect.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know why. It's just interesting that you're watching these multiple mini story arcs going on.
Yeah.
And I guess whatever action you take has an impact on that storyline. But not just it's not just one storyline. It's, as you say, there's 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
That you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as I said, you buy more cages, you have more stories to look at. Some of them you can't do anything with, so I think there are passive ones that are just screen space, but most of them you can start collecting information on and start interfering. You go down some right old rabbit holes, and sometimes what's going on in the story or what's going on in the screen comes up in the daily paper, so it's always prudent to check that, because you might find an article linked to a certain event that's happened, and you know, that's quite interesting to see what your actions actually do in the wider world. But there are some of those story arcs that do have a finite time. Like if you don't do anything, you can't do anything with that story once it goes past a certain point. So there are a couple that are time critical, but the majority of them, if you get enough time, you'll be able to, you know, go in there and start fiddling. But it's that thing, it's that classic like dilemma. You've got to make sure that you manage your hunger, your sleep, and your income, but also you don't want to leave the apartment for too long because you might miss a key point in the story arc. So
yes, you get that genuine do I or don't I? Do I just wait another
yeah, and the good thing is,
whatever?
Yeah, and to manage your sleep, you can drink coffee. So if that's not a good game, I don't know what isn't. Have a cup of coffee and your sleep meter will go up by 2 bars, but your health will come down by 1. So
it's all basically a balancing act, really. You've got to keep these bloody bars done. It's again this survival stuff creeping in everywhere.
But they do have a mode where we call it survival. Those things like your hunger and sleep decay really slowly, so they're not a problem. So right. You can put that mode on if you want to. I think it's called easy mode, it might be called, but you can put that on, and then that way you don't have to worry about eating or sleeping too much, but you still got to earn the money, so there's still a little bit of balancing going on for each of the cages, but it just means you could just do like 3 jobs on the bounce and not feel tired and just come back and sit there. But they're all time sensitive in the fact that things will only happen during certain parts of the day. So you might get a job that runs for 8 hours between 9 and 5, but that'll bollocks you up on some screens because nothing will happen. It's all a daytime one, whereas you get a few of them that are nighttime active ones, and those ones, obviously, you want to try and stay up and watch those ones so you can see those arcs. So depending on which ones you kind of get snarled up in will dictate your pattern, I guess.
So I presume there are some that you care about more than others.
Yeah,
you're more intrigued by, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think that's the case, but also it's the fact that sometimes you think, I need to have my guy sleeping a bit. Let's just see what happens in the next hour, and there might be activity on just one screen. So you think, right, I'll just go with that one, and then by hook or by crook, because you've got a bit of a lead on that one, you might follow that. But yeah, I've 100% seen screens and been like, oh, I'm absolutely gonna go into this one and see what's happening. This looks like quite an interesting one.
Yeah. So, because it's very voyeuristic, is there any mature content in it, or is it?
I didn't personally see any, but I got a feeling at some point there's bound to be some sort of nudity or something like that. I didn't notice any. I didn't get far enough down one of the stories to do so. And just for reference, I've been through the cycle twice. The game's actually only 16 days long. That's what you've got to try and do, is stay employed by this club for 16 days, make sure you don't die, make sure you don't pass out, and make sure you pay your rent so you don't get kicked out.
Right.
So it's 16 days, and I've played for it twice, and what they do is really clever. All the screens, or all the stories I should say, are always jumbled up, so you never get the same, starting with the same 4 screens. You might get 4 completely different ones the next time round, and then you might not unlock the first one until the very last screen. So it's quite clever the way they've designed that, because it means that each playthrough you do is going to be a little bit different, and if you want to find out about all the stories, you're better off chance starting again and just trying to focus on the ones that you haven't seen before.
Interesting. So I'm guessing it's a point and click affair.
Yeah, point and click, and you click on things in the environment. I said they get logged to your notebook. You can search on the internet, like I said, by using the words that you've made note of. So you just click on the word, then hit enter, and it will search and bring up a web page. And the key thing for that is to search for 2 words together to find like a unique web page towards that, and it would normally help you. But yeah, point and click, and like I said, there's really just 2 main screens that you've got to make sure you look after.
Yeah, I mean, where do we go from here on reviewing a game like this? It's not the graphics are going to be irrelevant almost, because they're just there to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Audio is going to be negligent.
Well,
or is it not?
Great soundtrack.
A soundtrack.
So you're in this apartment, aren't you?
Yeah.
And there's some cunt upstairs who keeps playing the radio or whatever.
Right.
But it's got some really good sound. It's got some good tunes, so I didn't mind it.
Right, fair enough.
So it's a bit muffled, but I guess that's the way they wanted the game to sort of be. Was, realistically, if you're stuck in this flat with God knows who around you, you're going to hear their music, and that's rattling off at all hours. So it's actually got quite a good soundtrack, and which is interesting. But there's things like, to pay your rent, your landlady will come along at certain times during the day. So if you've gone out to do a job or you don't answer the door, she'll leave a note. I think you get maybe 2 days to pay it. So if you go out again and miss it, you'll get booted out. So you have to... time management is the key thing on this, making sure you're at the right place at the right time, and making sure you don't get kicked out. But then you might get some random fucker from upstairs knocking, asking for 50 quid. And you're like, right, what do you want? Get all sorts.
Did you give it to him?
I did. Yeah, because I was quite flush at that point. So I did give him some money. But he kept coming back. I thought, hang on a minute.
Just because I've given it to you once, it doesn't mean you're going to get it again.
Yeah, but I think the game's endings are based on whether you do like your morality, basically, whether you do good things or bad things.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there like a good ending and a bad ending, for want of a better term?
It's probably the worst part of the game is when it ends, because it's bollocks. It really is a bit of a... I've done 2 of the 3, and I know what happens obviously in the other one as well, but they're not... The endings are really poor, to be honest. It's not really... I mean, it's a game that you're encouraged to go back and try an experiment, I guess, so the ending shouldn't matter. But if that's the case, there should be a mode in here for like endless play, where you can just pick one screen at a time, not have to worry about anything, just see that through, then go on to the next one. But there's not. They still shoehorn it into this scenario of 16 days, and then whatever your status is at the end of the 16 days, that's the ending you get. So... yeah, that's probably the weakest part of the game, really, is just the way it ties into the overall end of the game is narratively poor, and I think is a bit restrictive for a game that's got so much potential in terms of experimentation.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It could have the potential to be one of those where it's like a bit like No Man's Sky was, which is like an illusion of this big sea, but actually when you get your feet into it, it's an inch deep.
Well, it's I'd say it's got the depth for it, but the whole core of the game's pretty sound. It's just this whole, the primate observation club. Was it needed? Did they need to make them out to be the way they were? And then, I don't know, there's just some... I don't know what they were thinking at this stage. I don't know if they ran out of ideas or couldn't think of a way to end it, or thought they had to give you 3 distinct endings that, that were, somewhat memorable but didn't make sense. I don't know. But they're not really why you're playing the game. You're playing the game to be in the moment. It's just that when you are forced to come away from it goes, oh, this is your outcome. You're like, well, that's shit. But I was happy up until 5 minutes ago playing through it.
So it's good. It's satisfying to while you're playing it.
Yeah.
But the ending's not too satisfying by the sounds of it.
No, it just doesn't. It might as well have not been there. It might as well just been a text screen saying your time at the club has ended. Thank you. But they had to fucking shoe on something in to have different endings and achievements, I reckon. So these whole cunts ruining it.
Seems a bit unnecessary. It's like they had an idea, but they didn't know how to top it off.
I kind of get it. They want to show you how your morality is, how that impacts your outcome, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. But they have to be plausible, and they're not.
Right. Could just tell you. Could just give you like a score.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah. How many cages you closed off? Which were good outcomes, bad. I'd like to have seen that breakdown, but you don't. You just get 1 of 3 endings, and that's your lot. And then you go reset, and it goes yep, and you go right. We'll go through that again, and know that time limit's coming up in 16 days.
Yeah, off we go. So I guess I'll kind of open it up to you now. Really, is there anything else that you think is relevant for us to know on this game?
I don't think so. I just think it's a really interesting, different game, like Papers, Please was. And I don't regret playing it for 1 minute. To get through the game itself, first run took probably about 3 hours. And then I've done a second run, which took another 3 hours, give or take. So, and I still haven't closed off all the cages. There's still probably half that I haven't managed to get to the end of, or get to a resolution that I'm satisfied with. So I could see myself going back in and just trying to focus on those ones that I haven't done before and get to a resolution. It's got replayability. I think the sum of its parts are great. The overall narrative and where that goes is garbage. Just kind of try and get that out of your head. Just play for in the moment. Just play for those day-to-day stories and those 16 days where you're trying to balance everything and come back and save people's lives or potentially ruin them, depending on what sort of sick bastard you are.
There we go. So let's kind of move this on then to the score. Again, I say at most reviews, but I don't genuinely know where this one's going. Got a good idea, but what is your official grading?
Do Not Feed the Monkeys earns itself a 7 out of 10 bronze seal of approval.
I think that's pretty good. I thought it might get a 6, but seven's good.
It's just so unique, and I think the core of the game's really good, and the uniqueness of it. You won't play anything like this again. There's loads of random quirky things that will always catch you out. It's got replay value, and I just wish there was an endless mode. That's the only thing really that annoys me in terms of that area. It'd be great to have a mode where it's not an issue, and I can just go through each story individually. And as I said, the overall, the deeper narrative is garbage as far as I'm concerned. But sitting there monitoring people and then checking the time and thinking, shit, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I need to go to bed, but this cunt looks like he's about to kick off here. It gives you all those feelings that you probably would expect if you got hooked into hacking surveillance cameras and watching people. One of the first things one of your friends emails you says is make sure you look after yourself, don't stay on too late, don't get obsessed, but ultimately you will find yourself getting hooked into certain stories, and putting your health at risk just to see the end of it and hopefully dabble with them and dictate the fate.
Yeah, I can kind of understand that. You don't want to, it's the fear of missing out, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like these babies that won't sleep. I think they're missing out on the story of life.
Get up.
That's the reality. So we normally do kind of a little review piece, but there's not many major outlets that have really played this game. So we're left with Hobby Consolas, which is a random Portuguese or Spanish. No, it's a Spanish review. Old Jose L. Ortega gave it an 80 out of 100. So to you and I, that's an 8 out of 10 or 4 stars.
Yeah.
And he says, Do Not Feed the Monkeys was one of the most original proposals of the video game industry in recent years. Mm-hmm. His concept is different and fun from beginning to end. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is original. I'm not sure the word in there, but it's...
or translation, I think, is what it's going to...
Yeah, it probably is the translation. But, yeah, it's very unique. Gives you some player agency. Just a few missteps now and again. £8 though. Come on.
Yeah.
Get on it.
The final one we've got is old Juan Garcia from IGN Spain.
Juan!
He's given it 7.8 out of 10, which is a bit weird how he's just gone, well, it's not quite an 8.
Not quite.
So 7.8 you can have. He says, an interesting and unique point-and-click adventure that falls short on length but manages to entertain while it lasts.
Yeah, I mean, well, if people only want to play this through once for whatever reason, then yeah, you go, hang on a minute, that 3 hours is a bit short. But I think the idea of the game is to go back and experiment. It's a bit sandboxy, but doesn't quite give you the tools to go full sandbox. So I think that's where the overbearing narrative and the non-sandbox part of it dings it for me. But like I said, I recommend if you are at all interested in playing, based on what you've heard from me, then just commit to it. £8, 8 UK pounds, soon to be English only pounds after the Brexit breakup of the union and all that stuff. So it'll be worth fortunes. Well, £8.99, so 9 UK. But it's still under a tenner. 2 pints of lager in bloody London. That is.
Yeah. Treat
yourself to at least 3 hours of entertainment. Just don't take the learnings into real life because, we can't be having that, can we? People spying and voyeuring and whatnot.
The way the way that I'm translating this monetary value now is cinema, right? Cinema, because that's what £13 or more.
Yeah.
But to watch a film that might ultimately be 2 hours, that doesn't get an eyelid
and
back.
And you've got to watch it with a load of fucking idiots that are making racket.
It's a miserable experience. Yeah, if you go £8 for 3 hours, you go, not ideal. You go, well, if you go to the cinema and watch 3 hour film for £8, you'd be lapping it up.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's shit though. Unfortunately, Do Not Feed the Monkeys is not shit. It is unique. It is. It's quite. It's interesting where these stories can go. You think it's quite linear, but there's all sorts. If you're not, I'm going to say clever enough, but if you've got the nous to try different things and approach it in a slightly different way, you would often get rewarded with something you wasn't expecting. So, thumbs up.
Manages to give you a bit of a surprise.
Yes.
No, it's all good stuff. I am intrigued by it. I'd be interested to watch a stream of it. So I'd be interested to see if that's out there.
Can be done. I'm sure it is out there for other people. I don't know if I would do it.
Well, it'd be interesting to watch on stream, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would, because
there you go.
You'd be seeing people's raw reactions, and you'll find out what a sick fuck they are. It'll catch people out, is what it'll do. It'll catch them.
Excellent. Right. Let's close this one down then. Another one in the bag. This might be the last one for a little while. Don't know. But thank you very much for listening. Thanks for your time. And ta-da.